The date is March 11th, 2013. The time is 10:18 a.m. and we're on the record.
All right, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you state your name, please?
Matthew D. Wiggins, Jr.,
Where do you reside, Mr. Wiggins?
628th Street,
In what city?
Kemah, Texas.
And how long have you resided there?
Basically since the storm.
When you refer to the storm, would that be
Hurricane Ike, yes, sir.
You and I have met before. We've had several depositions, correct?
Yes, sir.
In those depositions, you have explained to me that you went to law school and you have a law degree, correct?
Yes.
And you obtained that law degree what year?
1975.
Since 1975, however, you have not practiced law as a practicing attorney, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, back in February of 2012, you sued a couple named Dolores Lara and Jose Gilberto Lara, correct?
That's correct.
And you sued them in case number 12 CV0195 in the 10th District Court, Galveston, Texas, correct?
That's correct.
When you filed this suit, you filed it on your own behalf, correct?
That's correct.
And since then you have obtained counsel, is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And Mr. Barry Bowen here today is your current counsel.
Yes.
In the facts paragraph of your original petition, you state that well, you say the plaintiff at the time was mayor of the city of Kemah. Now, what time are you referring to?
At the time that the statements made by the Laras was published.
And when was that?
February of 2011.
Okay. In your fact paragraph, you state that you had served in elective office since 2004.
That's correct.
And in 2004 to 2006, you were president of Galveston County Water, WCID number 12.
That's correct.
Right? What does WCID stand for?
Water Improvement and Control District.
And then you state from May 2006 to May 2009, you served on city council.
That's correct.
And from May 2009 to May 2011, you were mayor of Kemah.
That's correct.
When did you first meet the defendants, Lara or Mr. and Ms. Lara?
Probably 2002, 2003.
What was the occasion for you meeting them?
I'd bought the property next door to them.
What property was that you purchased next door?
Just the property next door.
Well, was it improved property, raw land?
It was raw land.
What is the address?
There's a bunch of them. I think 204 FM 2094 would be in the middle of it.
At the time you met them, where did the Laras live?
At 20 West 8th.
How many parcels of property did you own around 20 West 8th Street at the time that you met them?
Probably that was it.
Just the 204 FM 2094?
Yes, sir.
As we sit here today, how many of the properties do you own around 20 West 8th Street?
I have the other adjacent piece of property, and I've got a lot across the street.
And would they be on 8th Street?
Yes, sir.
Now, tomorrow, Mr. Bowen will take the depositions of Mr. and Ms. Laura. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes.
In the deposition, when he asked them, if he does, when they first met you, they're going to testify that they met you in the summer of 1998. Does that refresh your memory?
I mean, I could have met them then, but I don't, unless it was just, I don't remember the circumstances.
Okay. I believe their testimony is going to be that you came to them at that time in the summer of 1998, seeking to purchase their home.
I don't have any real recollection of that.
All right. Do you recall giving them $1,000 as a right of first refusal commitment?
Yes.
You remember what year that was?
I thought it was 2002 or 2003. I don't recall. I don't think I owned anything in West Kemah prior to 2000. But I could be wrong.
Do you remember telling them that their property had been devalued because of the commercialization of the neighborhood?
No.
You remember bringing a lady to interpret their Spanish to English?
Yes.
Who was that lady?
I can't recall.
It wasn't someone that works for you?
No.
Did you ever send an appraiser over there to value Laura's home?
While they were there?
Yes.
I can't remember whether it was their house or the house across the street. I may have. I know I got an appraisal on either their house or the house across the street from the Guadalupes.
Do you remember bringing pictures to them and measurements and showing them what the appraisal said it was worth, the house?
That may have happened.
Okay. You remember offering them $90,000 at the first offer?
Yes.
You remember increasing your offer to $105,000?
If I remember right, I think he was at 130, and I thought I went up to 110.
Do you remember what year you made the offer for 110?
That was probably 2003 or 4.
Did you have all of the necessary documents prepared, such as a warranty deed, so that they could sign and convey the property interest to you?
I don't think so. Well, you talk about in 2003?
At the time you made the offer for $90,000.
No, I don't think I would have done that. I'm not saying I did or didn't. I just don't think I would have done that. I think at that point in time they still had a mortgage on the property.
Do you know what kind of mortgage they had?
It was they had a contract for deed.
Do you know when that was paid off?
No.
Do you know if it was paid off before Ike?
I have not looked at those records in a long time, but the way the Oyster Creek people usually did their stuff is it was a contract for deed, so the deed was never in the property owner's name until it was paid off. So I don't know exactly. I don't have any recollection about when it was paid off.
Now, what year was the Ike hurricane?
September 13th of 2008.
Do you remember sending a real estate person over to the Lara's house in 2005?
I don't have any specific recollection of that. I mean, it could have happened. I just don't have any. I usually talk to Mr. Lara myself because he could speak pretty good English.
Mr. Lara can?
I could converse with him, and most of the time I've dealt with Gilbert, their son.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall in 2005 Mr. Lara raising his demand for the value to be $300,000?
I don't have any specific recollection of that.
Are you aware that Alana Croker went over to their house and talked to them about their offer?
I mean, she very well could have.
Is she a real estate person that works for you?
Yes.
Did she report back to you that Mr. Lara required $300,000 and she was authorized, she said, to counter with $210,000 from you?
That's not true.
Okay.
I would never pay that much money.
Do you know how many times you would have sent a real estate person over there to talk to the Laras about selling their property?
Not very many.
Did you ever call Ms. Lara at work and ask her if she was ready to sell her house?
I don't recall calling her at work. I don't even know where she worked.
Now, you know Mr. Lara had a lung transplant, correct?
Yes.
And that was in 2008.
I knew he had one, and I knew it was about that period of time. Yes, sir.
It was like 3 weeks after Ike.
I didn't know exactly when it was.
Mr. Wiggins, stop you for one moment. I need to make an adjustment to Mr. Wiggins' microphone.
Okay. Did you ever call Mr. Lara while he was in the hospital with that transplant?
No.
You referenced February of 2011 as being the month in which the Laras libeled and slandered you. Is that
Yes.
correct? Would that have been relating to the 13 Undercover TV show on Channel 13?
Yes.
And that was the production by a news reporter named Wayne Deltrafino.
The late, great Wayne Deltrafino, yes.
Is he deceased?
No, he got fired.
Okay. You were in that video, correct?
Yes.
And you're quoted in there as saying, "I'm a real estate person, that's what I do." Did you make that statement, Mr. Delfino?
Yes.
In the article, Mr. Delfino claims that you even own a piece of the famous boardwalk. Is that true?
That's true.
Now, in the article, in the TV broadcast, Maria Lara is, I suppose, the same person that you're suing by the name of Dolores Lara, correct?
That's correct.
She is quoting as saying that one of the pieces of property in West Kemah that you were interested in was owned by Maria and Jose Lara. Now, Jose is also the Jose Gilberto Lara that you sued, correct?
I think so.
And they apparently told Mr. Delfino, at least he reported, that they had rejected your offers before Hurricane Ike to buy their home. Was that a true statement?
Did they do that on the air?
Yes.
Yes, I would say that was a true statement.
Okay. The actual quote is, but one of the key pieces of property in West Kemah was owned by Maria and Jose Lara, and they had rejected Matt Wiggins' offers before Hurricane Ike came along. West Kemah, after all, was home. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And then Ms. Lara goes on, she says, this is where our heart is, quote unquote. Our family has been here for 16 years, quote unquote. You recall that?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Delfino makes an editorial comment here where he says, now her heart is broken. But after that, you're quoted as saying, I quote, I can tell when someone is cussing me in Spanish, unquote. Who cussed you in Spanish, sir?
Wayne showed me some videotape.
Where Mr. or Ms. Lara were cursing you?
Yes, or somebody in the background was.
Okay. Was it verbal? You could hear?
Yeah, I could hear. Yeah, he showed me some videotape when he interviewed me.
Okay. What was the words that were used?
I've worked in restaurant kitchens, and I can tell when they're.
Well, what do you recall what the word was?
I can't recall what the words were.
Okay. And then the next segment plays, and I have the video if you want to see it. I feel that Matt Wiggins was not an honest man, quote unquote, Maria Lara said through a translator. Quote, he wasn't straight with us. He played us crooked, quote unquote. Is that the defamation that you claim in your lawsuit?
Yes, sir.
She also says in this news article, quote unquote, quote rather, yes, I would like to know what's going on, end of quote. Was that a defamatory statement, in your opinion?
I don't remember the context of that.
Later on in the article, there is information that the Laras and the mayor, that would be you, talked about a trade of their house, the Lara's house, for a new one just blocks away. The mayor would build on a lot. You remember that comment in that article?
Yes, I remember the discussions about that.
Okay. When you say the discussions, with the Laras or with Wayne Delfino?
With the Laras.
Okay. Ms. Lara says, he offered the land, he offered to build the house high, just like the way the city wanted, Maria Lara said. Did you offer the land and offer to build the house high, just the way the city wanted?
I don't think the city, I mean, there was a requirement that you had to go up. It wasn't like what the city wanted, it was just a city requirement. What I did was I offered to build them a house the same size of the house that they're in, that was elevated, a new house that was elevated, and trade them for that house, for their house.
Okay. What is the, or I should say, what was the requirement in 2009, 2008, 2009 for elevation where the Lara's house was located?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Was there a requirement? You just mentioned that there was something about a house had to be built high.
The residential properties had to be raised up.
How high?
I don't know.
Who made that determination?
FEMA?
When did they make that determination?
I don't know.
Was it before or after the storm?
Before.
And when we say the storm, can we agree we're talking about Ike?
Yes.
Well, you were on city council for a while, and then you were mayor, and your testimony is that you don't know what the elevation requirements are for West Kemah?
The elevation requirements in West Kemah are different from one end to the other because of the elevation.
Okay.
Parts of it are higher than other parts of it.
All right, well, explain how that works. Let's say that let's start like this. Their house is on 8th Street, or was on the one you have now, right? On 8th Street. And if you go toward the water, the numbers go down. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So on 1st Street, what is the elevation requirement?
I don't know.
Do you own any property over there?
On West 4th is the Grove is actually the last street, and the next street is 4th.
Okay.
In West Kemah.
All right. What is the elevation requirement on 4th Street?
I don't know.
What is it on Grove?
I don't know.
Is Grove Street lower than 4th Street?
I think it is.
And 8th Street is higher than 4th Street?
That's correct.
Did FEMA have any requirement for the, prior to the storm, for the house that the Laras were in?
FEMA has broad regulations based on the elevation. I don't know if any piece of property has specific FEMA requirements.
And how was FEMA given this authority to make these requirements of elevation for the residential houses?
Projection, lack of foundation.
I don't know.
Well, you testified that FEMA has these regulations. I wonder from what source their authority comes. Is
I
it
would
federal?
imagine from Congress.
From Congress?
Mm-hmm.
Does FEMA come in and inspect houses?
Yes.
Do they inspect houses before the storms or after the storms?
I don't know whether they did it before, but they came in after.
But they had the requirement on the elevation before Ike.
They have requirements, and don't get me talking about FEMA rules because I'm not sure I understand all of them. If a house was built prior to 1983, there's a certain set of rules. If a house is damaged up to 50%, there's a certain 50% or over, there's a certain set of rules. So each house and each piece of property is, from what I understand about how it all works, is it depends on when it was built and what elevation it was built at. And most of those houses in West Kemah were built prior to 1983.
In West Kemah, if one were to drive around, they would see single-story houses that are flat on the ground, right? Their foundation is
Yes,
on the ground.
yes.
They're not on pilings or on, what do you call it when they build a house?
Up on pilings,
Yeah.
or elevated.
Right. So, but there's some there that, like brick houses that are foundation on the ground.
Right.
And those, if they were built prior to 1983, the FEMA requirements would not apply. Is that right?
They apply if it's 50% or more damaged.
Okay.
And look, I don't necessarily understand all of the FEMA stuff. When we were on council, we wrestled with this, and we finally had to hire an adjuster to go out there and tell us what things were worth. How much damage had been done. I mean, we were just clueless.
Okay. Does the FEMA requirements have anything to do with flood insurance?
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
No.
Well, you own a lot of property that has flood insurance on it, don't you?
Yes, sir.
And you're telling the jury here that you don't know anything about it?
All right, repeat the question.
Okay. How does the FEMA requirements affect flood insurance? Do they set the standard for the flood insurance? Can you get flood insurance if your house is on the ground and the foundation is on the ground like the brick houses in West Kemah?
Yes.
Okay. If the house was built after 1983 and it is a ground level, will FEMA not insure it?
I don't know.
Does FEMA provide the insurance?
It's a government insurance program, as you know, and you get the policy through different insurance companies that administer the FEMA rates and the FEMA rules.
Okay. So
Like Obamacare. In
Pretty
miniature.
close.
So the FEMA rules actually are used by the insurance companies to determine what the rate of insurance premium is? Is that how it works?
I don't have any idea.
Okay.
I pay $600 on one piece of property and $1,500 on the next, and I can't tell the difference in the two pieces of property. I've yet to figure out how that works.
And you'd never made an investigation into it?
No. The government is non-negotiable. Here's what it is.
Okay. And while you were on city council never struggled with the FEMA rules
Yeah, we struggle with them all the time.
to try to understand them? And you never did?
Never did.
In the same way when you were mayor?
Really didn't come up a whole lot when I was mayor.
Well, the storm occurred before you were mayor, correct?
Yes.
Who was mayor at the time of the storm?
Greg Collins.
Going back to the discussion that you had with the Lauras relating to building another house for them in trade of the house that they lived in at the time of Ike. In In the Delfino article, he says that deal fell through, the new house was never built. Is that true?
That's true.
And then you're quoted as saying, the estimate that I got on building what they wanted didn't fit what the property was worth. Is that true?
That's true.
Did you ever have anyone take the Laras to Texas City to look at a house that you were suggesting to the Laras would be the kind of house you'd build for them?
I don't think I had anybody. I think Blue Shields took them down there, but it was because I was talking to Blue Shields about the house.
Was Blue Shields going to build a house for them?
I talked to Blue Shields about building the house. I didn't instruct Blue Shields to take them to Texas City. I wouldn't know. I couldn't find a house in Texas City that, I don't know anything about Texas City.
Okay. But it was going to be a brand new house, right?
Yes.
And it was going to be on 4th Street in Kemah, right?
Yes.
And you owned that lot?
I either owned it or I had it on a contract or something.
Who is Jack Friday?
He was the building official in Kemah.
What duties did he have that involved the damaged buildings and structures after Ike?
He was the building official for the city of Kemah, and he had all the enforcement and that type of thing after Ike.
What could he enforce?
All the ordinances, all the building codes.
Could he enforce any of the requirements of FEMA?
Yes.
In what regard could he enforce those requirements of FEMA?
I'm not sure I know exactly how that works, but we have a floodplain management. I think he might have been the floodplain management person, and we're a community-rated community for FEMA. We get a lower rate because we enforce the rules to a certain level.
And you say we, you're talking about the city?
The city, yes, sir.
So the Laura's house was damaged in the Hurricane Ike storm.
Yes, sir.
And do you know what Mr. Friday said the amount of the damage was? What percent to their house?
No. I think it was over 50%.
In Mr. Delfino's article, he says, in August 2009, the Lara house was declared unsafe. Is that true?
I don't know.
You were not aware that the Lara's house was declared unsafe?
No.
And do you know who would have declared it unsafe? Would that have been Mr.
It
Friday?
would have been Jack Friday.
Then he goes on to say the Laras were threatened with a $2,000 per day fine if they didn't tear it down or fix it up. Were you aware of that?
No.
Do you know who would be threatening them with a $2,000 per day fine?
That would have been Jack Friday.
So it would have been the city of Kemah through Jack Friday,
Yes, sir.
correct? Another statement in that article that Jose Lara is videoed as saying, quote, I feel it. He took advantage of the situation, Jose Lara said through a translator. Is that part of the libel and slander you refer to?
Yes.
And then there's an editorial comment by Mr. Delfino that follows. The Laras say it's hard to keep the faith after all that's happened to them. But in Kemah, a lot of folks have complained the city didn't help them as much as it could have. Was there any, in your opinion, libel and slander in that statement?
Repeat that, please.
The Laras say it's hard to keep the faith after all that's happened to them. But in Kemah, a lot of folks have complained the city didn't help them as much as it could have.
I guess somebody could interpret that as defamatory, but I don't particularly feel that way about that statement.
Okay, so that's not part of your lawsuit?
No.
The last part of that article, Mr. Deltafino says, during our interview, the mayor suddenly offered to trade the Laras their house back, but our investigation just begins with their house. Did you offer to trade the Laras' house back?
Yes, sir.
Did you offer to trade it back during the interview?
Yes.
Were there ever any discussions about the Laras' house in city council when you were on city council after the storm regarding them repairing the house?
Yes.
If the Laras wanted to repair their house, would they need a city permit?
Yes.
Did they come to city council and ask city council to grant them a permit to rebuild their house?
I think they did.
And did you ever vote on whether or not they should be permitted a permit?
No.
Did you ever talk to Jack Friday about the permit that the Laras were requesting?
I don't recall talking to him about it. I was just on council. I would not have been in the loop on any of that.
Well, didn't you move to table a motion to grant their permit?
They had not. They were just fixed to get voted out because they did not have everything done.
What else did they need to get done?
I don't think they had. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they didn't have everything. They didn't have everything done. I don't think they had an estimate that came in at the right number.
The right number in the amount of money?
You're right. The problem was at West Kemah, Mr. Vick, was the damages to some of the houses were in the 40s to 60s range. And the city had already gotten a letter, we call it the shenanigan letter, that there would be no small town shenanigans, and that they were going to audit everything that we did, and that if we allowed homes that were substantially damaged to be rebuilt, then it would affect our community rating and the availability of insurance.
What was the vote on your motion to table that request for a permit?
I think it's unanimous.
Did you make the statement that you just made as the basis of your motion?
I think that night we postponed. Seemed like we tabled. I mean, during that period of time, I can't remember exactly what. I mean, I haven't looked at any of this stuff, and this is what, 4 years old or 5 years old. Seems like, I know on Dorothy Wilson's house, we tabled hers a couple of times till she got everything done, and then we tabled the Laura's, and I think we denied most of them. Technically, we kind of, after going through the process a lot, every house that was on the ground in the city of Kemah after Hurricane Ike, if you followed the federal rules, should have been torn down.
But the house that you bought from the Lara is still standing, isn't it?
Right.
Can you explain why it is still standing if it was condemned?
I don't know why it was condemned. You can't use a house as a residence. You can use it commercially, and I'm using it for commercial storage.
Well, the city council meeting at City Hall in Kemah, wherein you moved to table the Lara's request for a permit to rebuild their house or to repair it so they could continue to live in it, was in March of 2009. Does
Okay.
that refresh your memory?
That very well could have been.
Okay. The Laras will testify tomorrow that they saw you call Jack Friday into a private meeting, or at least you whispered something to him. Were you talking to him about the fact that you were going to move to table it because they didn't have their ducks in a row, the Laras didn't have their ducks in a row to get the permit?
No, I mean, I don't think I had any conversations with Jack Friday about that house at all.
Okay.
I mean, we had houses stacked up like cordwood in front of the city council back then.
But after that city council event, you and Jack Friday and the Laras all met, just the four of you. You recall that?
I don't have any specific recollection of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just don't have any specific recollection of it.
And in that meeting, you were explaining to them, I mean, they were obviously disappointed they didn't get the permit. You were explaining to them that you had a good offer for them.
No, I don't.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that at all.
It was in that meeting that you said to them that they didn't need a permit, that you would build them a new house with an elevator.
No, the requirement of an elevator was their deal, not mine.
Well, it was required if they were going to have an elevated house because Mr. Lara can't climb stairs because of his lung transplant. You're aware of that, right?
I was not aware of that, no.
Well, wasn't there discussion about him needing an elevator if you were going to build him a house?
Not with me.
So, can you identify when it was that you offered to buy, that you offered the land and offered to build a house high, just the way the city wanted, to Maria Lara?
That would have probably been in fall of '08.
When did you tell them that that the estimate you got on the building didn't fit what the property was worth?
I don't know that I told them that. I think I might have told Blue Shields that.
Okay, well, you told that to Wayne Del Trofito.
Right.
And was Blue Shields the one that did the estimate?
I think it was.
Did you have anyone else do an estimate on building a house for the Laras?
No.
Why just Blue Shields?
He's just the only one I talked to, and figured his number was going to be just about what everybody else's was.
Are you saying that Blue Shields builds it at about the same cost of other builders in Kemah?
From what I understand, that's what I mean, he's done a lot of work there, so he's got to be, pretty reasonably priced, or he wouldn't have all that work.
After the Hurricane Ike, Did the Lauras continue to reside in their home?
No, they lived in a trailer in front of the house.
FEMA provided them a trailer, is that correct?
That's correct.
And according to FEMA rules, they could not reside in that trailer forever, right? They had to move out after a while.
I don't know whether it was FEMA rules. I don't know whether it was FEMA rules or city of Kemah rules.
Okay.
One or the other.
Or maybe both?
Could be both.
Because you're aware that FEMA would send people by the trailers that were still inhabited after the time for residency expired, asking those people to move. You're aware of that, aren't you?
No.
Do you know the city sent people, the FEMA people out to tell them to move?
I don't think the city did.
You just think the FEMA people did if that occurred?
I really don't know who did.
You're not aware that the FEMA representatives would show up at the Lars trailer at 7 o'clock in the morning every day in the month of November 2009, knocking on their door, asking them to move? You're not aware of that?
No.
Do you know what percent damage that the city of Kemah or Mr. Friday said the Lars house had suffered?
No.
Was it over 50%?
I would imagine it probably was.
Did you have to do anything to the house to bring it up to code for a commercial building?
I'm using it for commercial storage. There's
Right.
nothing.
So you didn't do anything to it? You didn't have to replace the roof or repair a side of the house or anything?
No.
Was the house flooded?
Yes.
In the storm it was flooded?
Yes.
How deep?
Probably 3 or 4 feet.
Did you have to tear out the drywall?
Yes.
So you did that to it?
Yes.
What would the Lars have had to do to bring that building up to code as a residential property?
If it was over 50%, they'd have to raise it up to, out of the floodplain.
Wasn't that house built before 1983?
But it was over 50% damaged.
Okay, so if it's over 50% damaged, even if it was built before 1983, it would have to be raised.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that.
Well, you would probably know because you have been deeply involved in all of the storm damage after Ike. I mean, you had lots of property that was damaged, didn't you?
And I tore every bit of it down.
Like the Kip house.
I tore
right?
it all down.
Right, because it was damaged beyond 50%, correct? What about 705 Bay? Did you ever have anything to do with 705 Bay's damage?
No.
Were you on city council or mayor when the issue of 705 Bay came up for
Well,
permit?
Did I have anything to do with the damage to 705 Bay? No, I did not start the storm.
Okay. But
Thank you, Mr.
The damage at 705 Bay was substantial, but the house probably got more damage after the storm because it's an abandoned house. And, but the house got looted. It was probably as much damage to that house as anything.
okay. How much damage did 701 Bay suffer?
I don't know.
Well, you operate out of 701 Bay, don't you?
I do.
Okay. And you were talking to the owners of 701 Bay at the time about what happened to 701 Bay in the storm, weren't you? Mm-hmm. What happened to it?
First floor got flooded, and I don't know what happened on the upper floors.
Do you have any opinion as to why the Kip house was destroyed and those other two houses, 701 and 705, were not destroyed?
I would imagine method of construction,
How old was the Kip house?
1872.
So as we sit here today, you do not know what percent Jack Friday said the damage to the Laura's house was, correct? We'd have to ask Jack Friday.
I mean, I'm sure it's in the Jack Friday had his estimates. FEMA came in and did estimates. We had individuals that did their own estimates, you know, that would, you know, they would bring their own contractors and bring their own estimates, and we would get 3 different numbers. And that's when we started hiring an adjuster. The city hired an adjuster, I can't think of her name right now, to come out and give us the number that the city was actually going to use, and her number was always different from Jack Friday's.
And so which one was enforceable?
If I remember right, it seems like after Angela was her name, Angela somebody. I think after the city hired her, we went with her number.
What was Angela's last name?
I can't think of it right now. Nixon or Dixon or something like that. I mean, I can't remember specifically what her last name was. I think it was Angela somebody. I might be wrong. I can't remember.
You're right, that it's Angela somebody.
Everything after the storm is kind of a blur.
Well, let me just ask, did she work for a company called Information Providers, Inc.?
I have no earthly idea.
Would you mark that as an exhibit, please?
Yes.
Let's see here. Yeah. But we don't have a stapler, do we? You want to retrieve it for us or not?
As long as you don't talk.
Okay. Off the record.
Copy from me.
No, but you can certainly make copies. This one is actually preceded, and then there's this one.
Am I supposed to look at this now?
Yeah, you can look at it. Okay, we'll go back on the record. Mr. Wiggins, I've handed you Exhibits 1 and 2. Have you ever seen either one of those documents before?
No, sir.
Do you know what they purport to be?
One, you know, do in chronological order or exhibit number order?
Either way is fine.
The February 20th letter, which is exhibit number 2, is a letter to the Lauras and tell them they need to apply for a permit to either repair, raise and repair, or demolish your structure. The city's requested the electric company remove the electric meter from the property. If we've not heard from you by March 13th of 2009, we'll start condemnation proceedings to have the structure demolished and removed. Be advised that all repairs, reconstruction, and new construction are subject to the provisions of the City of Kemah building codes and require a permit. Construction activities that occur without proper permit are considered non-compliant and may result in daily fines and/or the removal of non-compliant construction. If you have any questions or need additional information, contact the City of Kemah.
Were you on City Council at the time that letter was sent?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall having anything to do with that letter being sent?
I had nothing to do with this letter being sent.
It was purely something that Jack Friday did within the scope and course of his office?
I think I got about 4 or 5 of these same letters from him myself.
Okay. As far as Exhibit 1 is concerned, that came after Exhibit 2?
Yes, sir. This is August the 4th of 2009.
And were you still on City Council, or were you mayor at that point?
I was mayor at that time.
Okay. Were you aware that Mr. Friday sent that letter to the Lauras?
No.
We hand you Exhibit 3 and ask if you've seen that before.
I don't have, I might have seen this as part of a packet at City Council,
Okay.
but I don't have any specific recollection about the Lauras.
You do recall that you tabled a motion to approve that permit, though, don't you?
Was it this permit? I don't know.
How many permits did they present?
I don't have any specific recollection.
If they testify that they came many times to City Council, would you have any information to contradict that statement?
I don't recall them coming to City Council that many times, but they could have.
And that many times being more than 10?
Well, I mean, are you talking about attending or have something on the agenda?
Having their permit on the agenda.
No, I don't have any recollection of that at all.
Do you know who made the estimates for the Lauras to determine what it would cost for them to bring their house into compliance, their house that you now own?
Do I know who did the estimates?
Yeah, do you know who did the estimates?
No,
Do you know if Blue Shields did?
I don't know.
Do you know if Chad Jones' company did?
Well, he applied for the permit, so obviously he did some kind of scope of work.
Okay.
Exhibit 4.
Yes. Have you reviewed Exhibit 4?
Yes.
You want to take a look at it, Barry? Have you seen Exhibit 4 before?
I think I might have if it was part of the city council packet.
Okay. Did you agree with the estimate or disagree with the estimate that it was presented by Chad Jones' company?
If I recall right, Jack Friday said that the estimate was incomplete. It doesn't have AC on here and a number of other things.
So it was incomplete in your opinion?
No, that was Jack Friday's recommendation to city council.
Could I see those other exhibits? Are you able to identify Exhibit 5?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what it is?
It's a letter I wrote to the Lauras, October 21st, 2008.
And what were you asking in that letter, if anything?
If you're interested in selling your property, please give me a call.
Okay, was that before or after the storm?
After the storm.
Did they give you a call?
I don't think so.
Did you ever check the title history on the house that the Lauras lived in that you eventually bought or traded for?
I'm sure I probably did at some point.
So you knew there was a contract for deed arrangement. Were you aware when it was released?
No.
Were you concerned whether or not you would get good title if you had the Lauras sign a deed over to you?
If I remember right, I didn't find anything in the records that would indicate that I would not get clear title.
Did you do it, the title search, or did you have someone do it for you?
I think Southland Title. Southland Title did a title search.
Who prepared the warranty deed that the Laura signed for you?
I don't know.
You didn't prepare it?
If I can see it, I might be able to identify it, but
Well, you traded them a house, right?
yes.
And that house that you traded with them, you gave them a house that you owned in South Shore for the house that they owned in Kemah.
That's correct.
Number 6.
Is number 6 a copy of the deed that you signed conveying the house in South Shore to the Lauras?
Yes.
Did you prepare it?
No.
Do you know who prepared it?
Southland Title.
Was there anything else that the Lauras said or broadcast or published other than what we've looked at here today that you considered as to be grounds for your lawsuit against them?
Not that I can recall.
Well, so you consider what we've gone over here in this Wayne Deltrafino news report to be the defamation that Jose Gilberto Lara and Dolores Lara committed against you.
That's correct.
What part of that information was false?
That I was crooked, that I was dishonest with him.
Okay, so let's deal with the crooked first. You understand in a libel and slander suit, the plaintiff puts his character into issue, right?
That's
Object
correct.
to the form of the question.
That's correct.
What is the basis? He's a trained attorney. Can you give me a clue?
Oh,
I'll restructure my question if I know what your objection is based on.
asking the witness as to what plaintiffs put in issue in a defamation action is simply a question that's outside the competence of the witness.
Okay. So you believe that the Laras said those things because they wanted to intentionally harm you?
I don't know what their intent was, but they harmed me.
Well, your reputation was injured by what the Laras said?
They were part of it, yes.
Do you recall in a meeting that you had, I think in your attempt at re-election, where you said, I lost for one word or something like that, the reason I lost one word, Wayne Deltrafino. Did you ever make a statement similar to that?
I very well could have.
Okay. Did you sue Wayne Deltrafino?
No.
May I ask why you did not sue him? You've sued like 10 or 12 other people.
Wayne Delcifino didn't say what the law said.
Well, the second paragraph in his video, he says, "We've been exposing possible public corruption, waste, and fraud. This time, it's real estate deals in Kemah." Don't you consider that to be a reflection on your character?
Wayne Delcifino didn't say I was crooked or dishonest. Ms. Laura did.
Later on in the article, he said, "Developers have had their eye on it," referring to West Kemah, "for a potentially lucrative commercial development. That's why the mayor has been buying up property there." Don't you think that tends to prejudice the voter as to what your intent being mayor might be?
I was buying property before I was mayor.
Correct. You've been buying property in Kemah for a long time.
That's correct.
How long?
30 years.
You would have to agree with me that the article tends to embellish the opinion that you took advantage of the laws, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you haven't sued Wayne Delcifino because he has the law firms that Channel 13 and its major companies have to defend it, and it would cost you a lot of money to sue them?
Object to the form of the question. The witness can answer it, but I'm suing the Walt Disney Company and ABC News and Channel 13.
Mr. Wiggins is?
No, Mr. Bowen, as counsel,
Okay.
is for a poor woman from the ghetto. So cost is not an object, and I'm more than willing to go after the insidious and evil ABC News and its parent, the Walt Disney Company, and the public record is replete with those facts. And you can answer, Mr. Wiggins.
Sounds like your lawyer's the one to sue him. Don't you want to sue Walt Disney?
Wayne Delcifino did not say I was a crook. Wayne Delcifino didn't say I was dishonest. Ms. Laura did.
But Wayne Delcifino is the reason you lost the election, according to you.
That's, you know, it is what it is.
Well, are you suing the Laras because you lost the election or because your reputation's been damaged?
My reputation's been damaged.
Are those two separate things?
I would say so.
Okay. So you feel like what the Laras said decreased the respect in the community, your respect that you had attained in the community was decreased because of the Laras statements. Is that right?
That's correct.
The people had less regard for you, is that true?
I guess so.
And they had less confidence in you?
Yes.
How much did you lose the election by? How many votes?
I can't recall.
It was less than 100, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
It was just a handful, actually.
There wasn't very many.
And you go on to say in your pleading that, which by the way, did you draft this pleading?
Yes.
Plaintiff's original petition. Further, these defamatory acts, what acts did they commit?
Going on television.
Has induced disparaging, hostile, and disagreeable opinions or feelings toward the plaintiff. Do you stand by that allegation?
Yes, sir.
Then in paragraph 402, still under the facts paragraph, you say you suffered damages of a personal nature. What personal nature did you suffer in damages? Didn't understand the question?
Repeat it, please.
Okay. You say that you suffered damages of a personal nature. What damages of a personal nature did you suffer?
Well, I mean, Ms. Laura gets on Channel 13 and says that I'm dishonest, that I was crooked with her. That's not true.
So how does that of a personal nature? I'm not understanding how that connects to your allegation that it damages of a personal nature. What kind of personal nature were the damages?
They're just personal.
Were they economic?
Probably.
Well, probably won't cut it at court. Do you have any facts to support economic loss because of these statements that the Laura's made?
I would say there are people out there that were probably reluctant to do business with me now.
Who are they?
I don't know.
Do you have any documents to reflect that?
I don't think so.
So this is just speculation on your part?
That's correct.
The next sentence says, pleading further, defendant was working with persons whose identity will become known with certainty during the discovery process of this matter, and who will then become additional parties to this litigation. On the day you filed cause number 12CV0195, how many lawsuits did you file?
5 or 7, can't remember.
Have you discovered in the discovery process additional parties?
Not yet.
Well, we're set for trial in 75 days. Are you intending on suing additional people?
Here's what I know, Mr. Vick. When the Lauras moved into that house, they were happy as anybody that I've ever seen. I made changes to the house. I put in tile floor in the den for Mr. Laura. And they were as happy as they could be. And we never signed a contract. All we did was sign deeds. They could have backed out of this deal umpteen times, and they could have traded back. Sometime in between the time they moved into this house and them going on television, somebody convinced them that they got swindled. And it was 3 months from the time we agreed to do the swap until we actually did the swap. And they're the ones that approached me about doing a swap.
The Lauras did?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Delfino says that you contacted the Lauras. During our interview, the mayor suddenly offered to trade the Lauras their house back. It sounds like you initiated the idea of giving the house back to them.
When Wayne Delfino interviewed me, I had no earthly idea the Lauras were upset about anything. I'd never heard from them. I'd never heard from Gilbert. Laura, who I dealt with during that whole period of time, had never heard a word about the Lauras. And when he brought it up, I said, look, if they don't like the deal, we'll trade back. They can have the property back.
One
No,
sheet.
yeah, mark each one.
This is A.
That's different, isn't it? Wait a minute. Well, that's an unsigned copy. No. How much time do we have?
We've got another 10 minutes. Is now a good time to take a break and then change?
Sure. Is that all right with you, Barry? Take a break right now, let him change tapes?
Yeah, it just takes a second.
Time is 11:38. We're off the record.